Hello and welcome to my friendly recommendation and review of the game Toukiden 2 for the PC. So I picked up this game because I've always had that itch to play a Monster Hunter style game, but I had no interest picking up any of the Nintendo consoles. So I thought, you know what, why not? One of my friends suggested I get this, and so I have, and here's my experience playing it. And just a quick disclaimer, I have not played any of the previous games, nor any of the Monster Hunter games. I've also never played the other game, God Eater, as well. So this is my first time delving into this style of gameplay. So one of the first things I noticed with it is that this is best played with a controller. I did not try the mouse and keyboard, I'm sure it's playable, but I went ahead and plugged in my Steam controller, which is the only controller I have right now for PC. And one thing I noticed immediately, if you're a Steam controller guy, get a real controller. It's a little more difficult with the touchpad. It's very sensitive aiming that camera around using it. And also, luckily there's a lock-on function making combat more tolerable, but if you're using the weapons that are ranged, it becomes more difficult for precise striking when you're also trying to move around as well. Now my first impression with the combat is I thought the combos were going to be really simple, but I was wrong. There is actually a lot of depth to each and every weapon, and they all play very differently. If you go from using the great sword to using the gun, it's not going to play the same. Using the rifle is going to be changing out different types of ammo. You're going to be using different types of movement and attack and stationary attack, same with the bow. Once I put on the spear, I was completely clueless again, had to jump into the tutorials and learn the weapons. So in this game, I highly recommend the tutorials, not something that you really should skip, especially if you want to be very efficient with your weapon of choice. So on top of the weapons that you get and their different variations of combos, you also have a variation of different power-ups you get through the use of Maitama, which is the warrior spirits you can collect and will give you various different power-ups, buffs, heals, support, attack, defense, speed. They all represent different functions, and you'll just have to figure out a combination of them that are going to work well with your particular playstyle. You also get the use of the Demon Hand, which ties into the single-player story, which allows you to grab hold of the Oni and potentially pull them to the ground or use a special attack to cut off particular limbs of the monster, which can then be later used to upgrade your weapons and armor. So the content can pretty much be broken into two categories: the single player, which is the story-driven RPG, and the multiplayer. Now the single player is pretty good. I'm enjoying it right now. It has a lot of dialogue that you have to go through, and it's all voiced in Japanese. The multiplayer is pretty much a lobby-based system where you can invite your friends through Steam, and you can have a group of 4 where you just pick a mission and you go and kill monsters. That's it. And that will carry over to your single player as well, so all your upgrades, everything you craft, also carries over to your story. So what you could do is just start playing with one of your friends or a couple of your friends, start getting a whole bunch of good gear, and then go back to the story where you're going to have an easier time destroying monsters and bosses in your single player story. One thing that's also worth mentioning about the single player is that it does have a open world environment where you can leave your town and go exploring and do more side missions and kill just monsters out in the field. You'll also come across a few random events, for example these operations, which will allow you to team up with a AI slayer, which will then join your party for a limited time. Now the multiplayer doesn't have that exploration that you can do out in the world. It's just purely a lobby and you stay in the main hub. But just like the single-player hub, you can do most of the functions within that hub where you get to blacksmith and upgrade your gear. You get to go to these buffs where you can choose to eat some food, or go to this spa where it'll give you a random purification buff, or an opportunity maybe after a boss encounter you'll get more loot or something else. Now one of the multiplayer's major flaws at the moment, and I'm hoping they'll fix this soon because this is kind of make or break for their game, is that after about 15 minutes of play, some people are experiencing crashes to the desktop. Now, I know how to fix this, and I'm going to provide a link in my description if you have this problem. But essentially, you have to go into a specific setting where you're turning off a tablet function of your computer, which is very odd that this would cause the issue. And once that's disabled, you'll be fine. But until you figure this out, you might have a friend or even yourself constantly just disconnecting after so many minutes of playing, and it's only going to work on the online, and you'll notice your single player is just fine. Graphics and audio. One thing about the graphics is this is not the prettiest game. When you go into these type of games, that was kind of to be expected. If you've looked at any of the Monster Hunter games, you look at God Eater, the previous Toukiden games, this is more of an arcadey style of gameplay. It's a lot of fun. You pick it up with a group of friends, and you go in and you slay a bunch of Oni or monsters. You collect their bones or materials or whatever it is you need to upgrade your equipment. Rinse, repeat. So this is definitely one of those games where functionality is more important than its graphics. Audio-wise, everything sounds alright. The music is pretty average. It gets a little repetitive at times. The voice work is in Japanese, so I can't really judge it. I don't speak Japanese. It sounds engaging enough, and you have the dialogue to read along with it, and the onis and the sound effects, it's all good. Only issue I take with right now is the in-game VoIP.
Is this what you wanted?
Not that I wanted, I just wanted to demonstrate it, yes.
No, you wanted it.
Alright, that's all I need. Thank you.
You asked for it. You asked for it.
My mind! No! I don't know where the design flaw went in with this, but the in-game VoIP, when you're playing with your friends, is automatically on, and there's no mute that I can find anywhere. The only way to manage this, because if you're in Discord or TeamSpeak or whatever you're using, you're going to have that double voice. You're going to hear yourself in the in-game VoIP, and you're going to hear your partner also in the TeamSpeak or whatever communications you're using for third party. So what you're going to have to do in order to stop that, because the in-game VoIP quality is pretty poor, is you're going to have to go into your own Microsoft settings and change the devices around in order to only have your in-game VoIP working and the game not picking up what's on your computer. So in conclusion, I definitely recommend this game. Now this is very important though. This is my first Monster Hunter style game I've ever played. I have not played any of the prior Toukiden games or God Eater. So for this style of gameplay, this is my first experience with it, and I really enjoyed it. Some of the pros of this game was the fun and diverse combat. Every weapon felt different. You could pick up a new weapon, you would have to learn it and master it before you could become efficient with it. The monsters were all unique. They had different ways of attacking you, and the encounters always were different, even if you fought the same monster over and over again. If you decided that this time you're going to cut off its arms, this time I'm going to cut off its legs, and just to see what it does in reaction to that, like when it has no legs, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to crawl at you, and then it's going to try and just throw itself at you, or maybe throw other type of attacks that you didn't expect that it wasn't using before, because it's adapting to the fact that it has no legs. Also, the engaging single player. The single player, I think this game wouldn't have even needed a single player story, but it has it. It's pretty good. It's not the most amazing story, but it's there, and I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it. The best part being the multiplayer. Being able to go and fight these monsters with your friends makes it even more enjoyable, because then you can work together and figure out how you want to take on each and every encounter. And it's fun when you return to your lobby or your hub town, and then you're both creating your new gear and you're using different weapons, and you're just comparing and contrasting what you got and seeing who looks cooler. Now, some of the cons, and this con could be a deal breaker, especially if nobody knows how to fix the multiplayer crash. If they don't fix the multiplayer crash, this game's going to have a huge problem. After 15 minutes, the game will crash for people because of a certain setting on their computer that they may not know is actually activated. The VoIP is terrible. They need to have a setting to turn off the VoIP, or to at least turn down the volume, some sort of setting where you can get rid of the VoIP so it's not going to conflict with other people's third-party systems like Discord. Now, because it's more of a controller-based game, finding the right control scheme for you to use, whether it be a keyboard or your own controller, might be a little rough. Dealing with port overs is never fun, so that's always a con in my book when it's just not very well built for the PC. It's a $60 game. That's a little steep, especially if you already played some of the older games of it, especially if it feels a little too similar. I would wait for a sale in that case. For me, who's never touched a game like this before, it's been worth my money. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think it's well worth the game. I recommend it to any of my friends. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you guys out, and have a good one.
Bad 不必要な接近は禁止です。